Okay guys, things are getting serious here right now. This is the Cobra WT track made by Camoplast, 20 inches wide for the VK, 1.5 inch tall lugs on here. Serious performance upgrade for this snowmobile. Anybody who owns one of these, you know that little track on there, half inch, quarter inch lugs on there, all worn down, provides no traction. So once we get this on here with that 1.5 inch lug, it's going to be insane. It's going to be a real performance upgrade. Can't wait to get it on. Now the Cobra WT comes in a 1.5 and a 1.8 inch tall lug. Very popular. You can put these on the Scandics. You can put this one on the VK here that we're going to do today. They also have a stock replacement track at about 1.25 inch lug, I believe. It'll go on there no problem. We're going to have to do a couple little changes, but you know what? Sometimes you just got to make those changes to get the performance that you want. What we're going to do is try to make it as stock as we can, but as simple as we can at the same time, because I like simple. Now they also make a super wide track version, 1.5 inch, and I believe a 1.75 inch as well. That's a 24 inch wide track. They're just a beast. But you know, that old Scandic SWT needs that kind of traction as well. We use one of those at my camp. It's an amazing machine. It pulls a lot. So I'm going to go through and give you the rundown on how to install this track on our good old VK540. Now there is a manual online that I did find. I'll leave the link in this video so that you can see how to tear one of these apart. And it's pretty simple. Even according to Yamaha's instructions, it's like pull the secondary clutch, pull the chain case, drop the sled suspension, pull the driver, change the track. That's pretty much it. There's really not too much to this. The chain case, everything comes out actually very easily. So we're going to pull this exhaust out in the secondary clutch. Not everybody has a spring tool, so I'm going to show you how to pull a spring out without using a spring tool. Now I'm just using this little piece of bungee rope that I had. That spring's not in there very hard at all. Get this one here too. There's that. Safety goggles down, pop this one in. That's it. All you guys go on these VKs, you know how good they are, how reliable they are. We just pulled this in, as you can see. Now what I like to do, everything that's going to come out of this sled, every nut and bolt and little spring, is all going to go in this little magnetized tray for today. Now we'll take out the secondary clutch. Ooh, that belt is pretty worn. You know, while I'm in here doing all this, I'm going to check everything out. Anything that needs to be replaced, I'm going to do that as well. Now to get this belt off is pretty easy. I just sort of pull it over to the top part of the sheave here. That's it. I need a new belt. All right, now the secondary's got to come off. Hopefully I can just get it out without taking the battery out. Let me see. I'm going to have to take the battery out. I can see it right now. The reason I need to get the secondary out is because I got to get underneath there to get at the axle. Yep. You know, before you go in and do any work on your sled, you should have the battery out anyway. Now this secondary can slip right off. There we go. The sled has almost 18,000 kilometers on it, which isn't too bad. Now we're gonna have to take this suspension out before we really pull that transmission out, just because there's a lot of track tension on that axle driver and things will come out easier if we just do it that way. So I'm gonna loosen up the back end here, show you how to take this suspension out. It's gotta come out anyway. Now there's a cotter pin on this axle shaft. Just gonna loosen this off. Because there's tension on these wheels pulling in against the side of the adjusters. Now to loosen off the adjusters on these back wheels, you gotta go through the track hole, and there's a nut on there. Loosen that off. Now remember, put these in your little magnetic tray. So I've just taken the back end of this machine just slightly off the ground. A little bit of play in there. I've loosened off the rear tensioning wheels. I'm gonna drop the rear skid out of this now. Now before I take these all the way out, I like to undo both first to make sure that they're actually coming. I don't know if this cross shaft in here, if it's seized, sometimes it's a bit of a pain in the butt. Now this sled's been around a long time. Some bolts on one side, not the same as the others on the other side. There we go. Now I'll take that other one out. These ones. These upper mounts are for the little idler wheels. That'll take a lot of tension off the track. After these, that was tight. I'm gonna go check that other side out. The other side in here. And that should be good to go. That's it. I'm gonna go through that, make sure that's all good, all those bearings are good in there. Now we'll pop out the transmission, get that axle shaft out. Now those look to be a 12 mil. I have to do those by hand. This brake I'm gonna be able to, I should be able to leave that, because I only need to pop this out so far. But I do need to undo this transmission. It's a 10 mil. I usually put things in the tray, but this one, I'm just going to reattach to the shifter. I've never removed one of these transmissions before, so we're both going to learn something here today. I think there are 4 bolts holding this transmission on, and there's no retaining clip inside holding the axle shaft on. So it should just slip right off. Which is great because then we don't have to split the case. This transmission comes out that easily. I'll be pretty happy. Can I get that bottom out? Oh, it's just got to come off the shaft. Yep, that's it. So I don't need to undo that brake. That is brilliant. Now I'm onto the bearing retainer here on the far side. Looks like there's a speedo sender on it. I'm just going to pull off the speedo sender now. And in behind there is the retaining nut for that axle shaft. There we go, that's the speedo sender off. Just make sure you don't lose this little thing right there. Now, let me see what we got here. In typical Yamaha fashion, they have a big nut, a big retaining nut on the end here. So I probably should have taken this off before I took the transmission off. It's going to be just a little loose for me to grab onto, but that's okay, we'll get it. Okay, if you did what I did, and you took off that transmission before you undid this nut, just put a pipe wrench on the axle shaft. That's what I did. I'm holding it right now. So I got that nut off. It's 1.25 inches. Not sure how many millimeters, but maybe 32, 28, something like that. I'll see if I can find a ratchet to put it back on. Gonna pop that bearing off the end of the shaft here. That comes off very easily. Just a little easier with this puller. This is just a tie rod end puller. Now, that shaft and that track are ready to come out. Axle shaft. Out with the old. And you can see this track. Take a look at that. Look at the little tiny lugs on there. Some pretty old technology right there. And it's pretty darn heavy too. So I got these extrovert drivers from SLP, startinglineproducts.com. And they're a different pitch. Now the pitch on that track I believe is a 252. And we're going to a 286 with this newer track. This Cobra WT has a 286 pitch. So we're going to use that. And these are also extrovert drivers. So we're only going to use 2 instead of the 3. We're going to have that extra grip on there with these extroverts. And it's going to hold everything on really well. We're going to get traction. The track isn't going to ratchet. Some people call these an anti-ratchet driver. So I'm just going to press these off right now. That's going to be a tricky press job, but one thing I like to do is just lube these up before I start pressing them, because now there are 3 on here, and I can't get the press in between to do each one. So I'm going to try to do them all at one time. Let's see how that works out. I picked this press up at a yard sale for 20 bucks. Now what I always do is, I'm going to press them on from this side because I don't want to damage these threads. If I start to press on this side, it might mar them up a little bit. So we're going to press it on this way. Now when you're installing drivers, it's important to notice, you can see there's a little arrow on that driver. That's pointing to one of the extrovert little drive cogs there. Those are clocking marks. So you want to make sure that you put those and align them so they're both the same. If you put it off kilter, your cogs are going to be slightly misaligned and you're not going to get a very good fit, and it's going to really upset you because you're going to have to repress everything off and you're not going to be happy. Ask me how I know that. I'm going to lubricate this. Just helps it a wee bit. So our new drivers are installed. A little bit of messing around, there's no doubt about it, because these extroverts have to go through the windows. Now we've made up the new shaft, measured it from side to side in the tunnel. It's all good. 95 millimeters when it's in the tunnel to the inner side of these external drive cogs. Now, this is a measurement you're going to need, so come look at this. From the threaded end of this shaft, from the threaded end of that shaft to the middle of this driver is 129 millimeters. From the splined side of the axle, you're looking at 116 millimeters. 116 millimeters. Now we're going to go put this in with the track. Might be a little tricky, might be a little dirty, but when things start to come together, this is the fun part. All right, let's put this on the right way. There's your directional arrow. So the track is rotating this way from the top to the bottom. That's going to give you these nice cups here to give you all that traction you want. That's the way this is going to go in. I'm going to stick this track up inside the tunnel as much as I can. Pin it there. There we go. Now, the only reason this can really work is because of the way the track goes in, and we can mate the two sides together. And this whole chain case comes out, and that's a good thing. So I'm going to try to get that in. Now, it's a lot easier when you have another set of hands, but I don't have a set of hands. Only my own. Only my own. Shaft just went in there. Beautiful thing, I must say. Now, I checked this bearing, it's all good. Put it on the shaft. And there was a washer with it. Oh yes. Washer. And a big nut. And this time, I've got this big ratchet. So I'm just going to buckle all this together, and then I'm going to check for the track clearance. And I want to really make sure that I rotate the track through there and that it's not binding on anything. And this is an experiment, right? I don't know if anybody's put this size of a track on a VK yet. No one that I know of anyway. So there. So you can see on both sides we have clearance. ahead. And nothing is binding when I turn that track. I think I have about 1/4 inch, maybe a little less clearance between the track and the tunnel, and that's fine by me as long as it doesn't touch, then I'm good. Now I just have to put that rear suspension in, and we're good to go. My cameraman had to leave me for the day, so I'm on my own. When you're putting one of these suspensions in, doing it by yourself is pretty tricky, especially something that is so big and nasty like that. But I'm gonna do it. It can be done. I've done it many times. Just a little harder when you're an old guy like me. But when it all boils down to it, we gotta do it. So I'm gonna try to put the skid back in the stock factory location. I wanna see if it can be done. Make your life easy, make my life easy as well. So the key to putting a suspension back into a sled, you gotta back off those rear axles, those rear idler wheels. Make sure they're all the way backed off. That's the first step. Now, I've got an adjustable strap here. I'm gonna use it, move things up and down a few times. Should be able to work it out. Some skids, you gotta compress it a little bit. Maybe put a ratchet strap on the arms to bring them in a little closer together. I might have to do that with this. Gotta put those front mounts in first. When your track is just sitting there all loose, it has a tendency to just sort of fall off the front of the drivers, and you're wasting a lot of room up at the front. You gotta make sure you grab underneath your track and just pull it back nice and tight. Now, if I pull back on these wheels, it's not gonna do anything. I gotta pull it. There we go. Let's see. I try to put these little idler assemblies in. There's one. Kind of doing this Survivor Man style. What? This is gonna work, which is a good thing. Yeah. Beautiful. Now I've got to get that rear axle in there. I'm gonna try to lower that. Let's see how that works. Still lots of track tension there if I need it. So my issue right now is that the axle shaft is right about there. I need to pull it forward to get it into one of these two locations. This is the stock location. I'm going to go here because I want to be able to go in a little deeper powder. So that's where it's going to go. So as you can see, I've installed that suspension. There's still lots of tension or lots of ability to tension up that track if I need to do it, which I'm going to have to do. But the first thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run this sled up. I want to see if anything is binding up in there, coming in contact with the shaft across there, because things are a little different with that whole setup. So I'm just going to fire it up, pick the back end up off the ground, just give it a little run up. Good. Nice. Yeah. Love that. Now I've just got to go and snug these up by hand because those ratchets never really do what they're supposed to do. There we go. Very cool. I got to thank you guys for coming back. Make sure you check out my website, PowerModz.com. I'm doing a few things. I'm going to be adding all the videos for all my builds in one area so you can just go through and scroll through them all so you can make sure you hit every one. I'm going to be telling you exactly what part and pieces I'm going to be using on everything and that I've used. And also, I'm going to be starting a forum. I'm going to make a forum just for you guys. You can come on board, ask all kinds of questions, and we'll be there to meet you and talk to you. All the guys, even Simon. He's pretty cool. So that's it. I'm going for a tour. Make sure you check out CamoplastSolidDeal.com for that cool Cobra WT track.
You to come, I'll make it impossible.